So the collar is a little more complicated than everything else. We have both centers marked. We're going to pin them. We're going to pin this with the wrong sides facing out on both sides. And we want to try and line the interfacing up with the interfacing as much as we can. We're just going to pin it all the way around both ways. I usually tend to pin one down first and then pin the other one on top of it. You'll see what I mean in a second. All right, now that we got this, flip this over. Everything looks nice and neat. And we're gonna pin this to this side. Again, you can feel and try and line up these two pieces of interfacing, because the better these line up, the easier everything from this point on is going to be. Then we just work back. Since the collar is super noticeable, I will overpin. Absolutely, pins are cheap. So now we sew close to this edge as we can without going over, stopping at both ends. All right, let's just sew this collar. Oh, for the goodness. Halfway point. Go for a measure. This side's the easy side. This side just gets folded over at a 45 degree and then pinned right here. We fold this flat. And we pin it out here because we're going to stitch here and down as far as we can, probably to about here with everything tucked in, and then flip right side out. But first we have some work to do on the other side. Let's pin this, try and line the top up as best we can, be at the top of the interfacing. That's close enough. Now on this side we need to find the exact edge, which luckily our stitch ends at there. We're going to measure. All right, so now I mismeasured here. They say 1 inch, but you want 2 inches, not 1 inch. Everything else is the same. You measure over 2 inches, you make your mark, transfer it up, measure over 3, so you have your 45. Everything else is the same. It's 2 inches, not 1 inch. They're exactly 2 inches. Right about there. From there we want to go over 1 inch and connect the dots. That gives us a 2-inch flap at the collar to close properly. And we have 2-inch piece of Velcro. Keep in mind, the fuzzy side goes on this side. So we want to trim this off, but just the interfacing. Luckily, fusible interfacing isn't, 100% attached. It's just pretty close. Trim that. Be careful not to cut the fabric underneath. I'd rather have it just a little long and know my collar's safe than accidentally cut the collar. So now we're going to fold this over and pin it. We're going to fold this over and pin it. So I've been doing this a real long time. Probably about 5 years. Been making jumpsuits. Easily made 50 of them. Even I get real messed up sometimes and put it on the wrong side. We want it so when we close it, the Velcro's on the inside. This piece is the inside. So, again, just go over what we just did. Bring this in. There's our thread. Put a mark there. 5 1/4, 5 1/4. Mark 1 inch, 1 inch. Mark the center. Mark the center. And then 1 inch over from that. Alright. Lightly peel up the fabric, or interfacing, sorry. No overpeel. I don't care. Snip. Alright, fold that over. And fold that over. So right here is where we want, that's what our collar's going to look like. Might be a little small. Center it and pin it in place. Be sure not to pin all the fabric we just folded underneath. That's just so we can center everything. Let me pull these. Open everything back up. Be sure not to pin the fabric underneath. There. Now we're going to zigzag stitch this on in place. That way, like with the cuff tabs, once we stitch that in, looks a little angled. Once we stitch that in, I guess it's fine. It'll be on the inside. Alright, now that we got that taken care of, we fold this over just like the other side. We want to pin it down here. It's way out of the way. And then we are going to pin and sew all the way around here for as far as we can. And this is where lining everything up comes super, super important. That's right. So I'm going to pick my stitch up probably about here. And on this one, I'm going to try to get to here. If I can get just past that point, it'll make everything easier. But we're just going to stuff that in, try and line everything up as easy as we can. Again, making sure to try and line the interfacing on each side up together, and then just stitch. This is the flat side first, just because it's a little easier. It's also less noticed. Turn 90 degrees. You need to come out just a touch more. That feels better. like any other corner. And on to the annoying one. It's not annoying. It's not really difficult, it's just time consuming. It's been a very long day. Put the fabric over here. Sew this way. Take your time, go nice and easy. And put on our glasses. Now we just tuck as much of the fabric in as we can, line the edge up as best we can, and then sew. I can stuff more in there. I'm not gonna. So, as usual, we nip the corners, cut the excess off, and we're gonna turn everything right side up. All right, we just stuff, pull, chopstick, nice good corner, and do the same thing over here. We just pull this way. The whole thing's gonna wanna untie, or not untie, gonna pull itself out. Pull your pin, nice and easy. Not too shabby. All right, now what we're gonna do, we're gonna fold everything over on both pieces, line the edge up, and we're gonna pin the whole way along. Our top stitching is gonna lock this in place, and the second stitching is gonna make sure everything stays in place. So just carefully pin everything in. Now you can see why it's so important to try and line up the interfacings, because that makes this part way easier. Because you can just fold it at the interfacing and not really worry about it. Just work our way along, fold, line up, and pin. There. Now we do the top stitching all the way along 1 millimeter from the edge, and then we do the second stitch just like everything else. Found if you put a little tension on the fabric, it tends to keep things in line a little easier. And of course, run out of bobbin. Just pick up the stitch right where we left off. So now with the other part of the Velcro, I just kind of space it evenly so there's an equal amount of fabric all the way around from my last seam, and then just stitch it in place. Alright, and now the collar is done. Only thing left at this point are cuffs.